Okay.
Okay. And here we have this. So another aspect of this is it's a global application. So there are around 17 to 18 languages which are globally supported. Global languages, French, German, Russian, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, all these are supported by the application. So the UI part of it is in the respective languages, while the data part of it, the core heart of the data, that is saved in the English language. This is the full application suite, the solution that has been put out through the Fusion application. 100 plus software products. So you have financial management, human capital management, supply chain management, project portfolio management. So these are all different products, group of products with individual modules inside each one of them. On an average, each of them would have something like 7 to 8 different modules at least. And between them, most of it is something like they have an essential core set of modules, and then they tend to build on those modules the other software applications that are there. So for example, if we look at HR, we have the global HR, which is like the core HR. And then that is where all the setup and most of the configuration is done. And then other modules like benefits, compensation, performance goal management, payroll, all of these build on that core HR solution. Okay. And similarly with supply chain or with financial modules and all of those. So they have a core part, and then they have on top of it product extensions, you can say. So which gives additional functionality to each of the modules. The other very important set of products that are there is the GRC, the governance, risk and compliance, which is very, very important in this today's IT security world. So the application has a lot of GRC compliance related features, which helps auditors to keep track of what is happening in the application. You must have heard of different terms and terminologies being thrown around nowadays. So on one side, we have something called as on-premises.
Yeah.
Right. And the other extreme, we have the software as a service. Right? So the one, if you look at the coloring, the how it is the one that where it is a bit turquoise is something that the customer manages. When we say you, we mean the customer. The customer manages everything, right? From applications to networking, storage, servers, middleware, everything. Then it's an on-prem, right? On-premises. So the customer is responsible for end-to-end everything. And when we say software as a service, the customer doesn't do anything. So everything related to the application is maintained by Oracle. And in our case, it's Oracle. So depending on the application, it could be any other vendor. So Oracle manages all of this. All that the user needs is a user ID and a password. So the user ID and password is enough to get someone signed into the application, right? So they don't have to bother about where the data is being held or how much space is getting utilized or the storage is getting exhausted or anything of that kind. It is all the headache of the vendor who is providing that.
Okay. Can I have one question?
Yeah.
So, have you seen any customers going on-premise with?
Yes,
Oracle
there are handful of customers, but there are not too many of them because it's a very, very costly affair now.
Okay.
And with Fusion being a huge application stack, so like we saw, everything gets installed, right? So it's not that they can just opt for finance or they can just opt for HR. So everything gets installed and they have to take care of the entire database and take care of the middleware. And it's a quite a exhaustive footprint when it comes to the Fusion modules. So that's why hardly, handful of customers, but most of them, very, very big customers as well, have implemented SaaS. And Oracle has been encouraging the customers to go to SaaS. Oracle strongly discourages people from using on-prem.
Okay. So on SaaS, so even the application is managed by the Oracle,
Oh,
right?
yes, yes, totally.
Okay. But how do we have the day-to-day affairs, right? Once the project goes live, right? So that is also completely taken. So
What do you mean
my
by
own,
day-to-day affair?
like let's say any kind of transaction or anything
No,
on the
transaction,
application.
yeah, transaction is something that the user will be doing. So you have a user ID and a password.
Okay.
Okay. So data entry will be done by the user, but that's
Okay.
saving the data, taking a backup, or, ensuring that the data is available, application is up and running.
Up
That
and
is
running.
all the
Okay.
responsibility of the user, of
Okay.
Oracle, sorry, is the responsibility of Oracle.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So a little bit of background in terms of how we arrived at Oracle Fusion. Till around 2002, Oracle owned Oracle application, or e-business suite as it was called in 2001. And subsequently, Oracle Corporation acquired PeopleSoft. So PeopleSoft was a rival product of Oracle application, and it was a very popular HR software. And before that, PeopleSoft had already acquired JD Edwards. So when Oracle acquired PeopleSoft, it got PeopleSoft and JD Edwards. And subsequently, Oracle acquired Siebel ERP also.
Yeah.
And by 2005, it had 4 of the 5 top ERP products of the market. And at that time, Oracle, was wondering what to do and things like that. And initially, the market was really messed up a lot, and there was a lot of uncertainty in terms of what's going to happen and things like that. But Oracle had its own game plan, and this came up with a plan to merge all these 4 products and create a new product using the best features from each of these products. And this was called Fusion. And that's why around 2009-10, they launched the Fusion application. And when they sell the product, they sell it on both the options, on-prem and SaaS offerings are there. Essentially, a lot of customers have some misgivings on cloud and putting their data on the cloud and things like that. They have misgivings about hacking and all that stuff. So Oracle also tried to play around that option and offered them the cloud on-prem module.
Okay.
Not module, on-prem option to install and basically to get them on board. Now, when it comes to the core application, what Oracle Fusion does is, at the heart of it, it has a same product across all these legislations. Few minutes back, I had told you Oracle supports different languages, right? France, German, Spanish, Russian, and all those. So each country has its own set of rules, regulations, and customization requirements, stuff like that, local rules. statutory rules and all that. Just like we have GST, UK has VAT, or US has sales tax, and other countries also, like, China, Japan, Germany, France, they all have their own set of local rules and regulations and all that. And the ERP module is expected to provide, cater to the local requirements. So what Oracle has done is, there is a core module, set of tables or core set of features which are always available for the along with the product. Okay, so no matter what you do, Oracle will always be installed, and that will always be used. And then from there, they then start using the other additional layers that are provided. So you have the cultural processes. For example, when you go to Japan, they have their Kana and Kanji script. You may be aware of Kana and Kanji. So the Kana and Kanji scripts are available, and in the application, it is required by the local rules and regulations. Every employee's name must be in both the scripts. It must be recorded in both the scripts, Kana and Kanji. Okay, so that is why both their names has to be provided by the system. Okay, it has to be catered to by the system. And similarly, when you go to a country like UK, or you go to US, you have the social security, or you have their the local national identifier numbers which are recorded in the application pertaining to that country. Okay, so those are the local rules, regulations, and you have additional tables on top of that. Okay, and a quick comparison in terms of on-prem and cloud or SaaS. Yeah, hi, good morning. We have that session today. Yes. You want to join? Please. Okay, so this one is about the on-prem or the cloud or SaaS. Okay, so this one we have just discussed. Okay, Ankita?
Yeah. So in the on-premise, if there are any patches and all that comes, right, updates, so that the patches are given to the customer and they apply the patches.
Correct.
How does it work?
Correct. Now, the traditional on-prem model is quite like this. Okay. Where in the heart you have the database, and then you have the operating system, then you have the SQL, PL/SQL tools, which all connect to the database. And then you have the middleware, which is the applications layer. And finally, you have the user interface. Right? Now, when you look at the cloud model, it is like this. So you have different enterprises, enterprise A, enterprise B, enterprise C, and within the enterprise, you will have multiple users. So each user is connected to an enterprise, and when they sign into the database, they only get access to that particular database. They don't get access to anything else. They can only see data for that application, for that enterprise. They don't get full access to the database. They only get read-only access. So you can run a query, but you can only read the data. You cannot go and update the data.
How do we update data in cloud? How do we do it?
There are certain APIs, there are certain programs which are provided by Oracle Web Services and all. Only through those database allows update to the database.
And the do we get a separate how does license? I know I should not be saying license, but how do we need to pay extra for that?
No, it comes with the application. All these web services, APIs, and all that are provided along with the application. So all you need to do if you want to update data is you have to use those programs to go and update the data. You can't directly write a PLSQL script or a SQL script and update the data.
An admin would be doing that, right?
Yes, typically admin or anybody with the proper access.
Okay.
Now, when we go into any implementation, one of the first things that a customer debates internally is whether they should go for off-the-shelf ERP or whether they should go for a custom solution. Right? It's quite like, when you buy a dress, you take a decision. Should I buy, should I get my dress done custom? Go to a tailor, give them a piece of cloth, buy the cloth, give them the cloth, and let them take the measurement and then do the solution, create the dress, or should I go for a ready-made dress?
Okay.
Right. So ERP is quite like a ready-made dress. So it follows the uniform rules based on the global processes. There is less scope for customization.
When you say less scope of customization, see any product, like any license a customer buys, right? They have to anyways implement it. And when we say customization, so what level of customization we are saying? Are we talking about fast formulas, adding DFF, EFF? What is it?
Yes, that's what we are talking about, because you can't change the UI. Okay, you're not allowed to change the UI. You can only do the UI, whatever is allowed through limited personalization that is allowed. Moving the sections of the fields around, enabling a new field, or removing an existing field and things like that.
So most of the customers would always be getting custom solution part, right?
Yes, but there are downsides of going for a custom solution. One, freezing on the requirement takes a long time.
Yeah.
What happens, moment people realize that, oh, I can get what I want, and, getting people to understand what you want is important.
Yeah, it never freezes.
Yes, it never freezes. Testing is another very important piece, right? So more you test bugs, taking care of the bugs and all that. So it takes a long time. And most of the companies who are implementing the ERP product are global companies. So they have operations spread across the globe. And just imagine a company like, a Tesco, or you look at a company like, global companies implementing an ERP solution. Okay, pan world, right? Pan geography. So it's a huge task. So for them, going for an ERP makes much more sense. Yeah, hi Shivani. Good morning. We just started off with an introduction of the the product per se. We haven't gone into the product as yet. We are just talking about the different features and what are the different things that we come across from the application side.
Okay. This is the on screen which I'm seeing, that is the
yes. So these are the software options. So like this slide is talking about when a customer decides for the first time that they will do, they will go for a ERP solution, they really have two options. One is to build the solution from scratch. Another is to go for an ready to use kind of ERP solution, which is, so give you an analogy, it is quite like, when someone decides to buy a shirt, like they can either go and buy the cloth first and then go to the tailor, get the measurements done and create that shirt, or they can go to a pantaloons or a shopper's stop and buy the shirt directly from the shelf. Right? There are pros and cons of both. So when you go and buy the shirt directly from the store, from a shopper's stop, it may not fit the person perfectly, right? There could be some loose ends here and there. So then you will have to use either, you will have to use pins and, to fit it to the physique. You might have seen the mannequins wearing a perfect dress, but it never fits us when we wear it, right? So they use a lot of pins and stacks and all that to fit it. So that is what we do when we go for a ERP module. Okay, so when a customer decides to implement Fusion ERP, it's like a size 44 shirt, the biggest size you can say. All possible options are there as part of the product. Okay, and so that is where during the implementation, we have to understand what is required, what is not required, and then configure the system for the customer to use. Okay. And custom solution is probably an ideal solution where customers will get exactly what they want, but that takes a lot of time in terms of requirement, testing, building the software, and indirect costs are huge. So most global companies opt for an ERP solution to overcome the problem.
Do you have any examples for custom solutions which currently used?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I didn't get the first part of it.
I mean, any examples for custom solutions?
Custom solutions example could be like, someone builds let's say a recruitment solution. Okay, you might have seen a lot of companies have a website where people go and apply, right? So there are products from Fusion or from other ERP vendors also, which takes care of that. So you have a website from where you can directly, where the candidates can apply and the data will come directly into the ERP. Whereas some companies prefer to have a separate application on their website where the applicants will submit their applications and all that information will be collected and they do kind of a duplication check whether the applicant is already existing in the database or not. Because as you know, people tend to apply through multiple channels. So it might come through the vendor, recruitment consultant, or it might come from the web or from internal referrals and things like that. So those kind of checks can be more easily done in a custom solution than in a standard off-the-shelf solution. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before we go into this, let me just show you the other one. So when we come to the implementation approach, there are two terms that we use. One is called configuration and one is called customization. What is configuration? Configuration means we will use the standard features of the ERP product. Okay. And we fit customer requirements to the product features. So we may add some additional list of values, or we might create an additional field in the application, or we might make some values unavailable to the user. So users don't see those values, or we might hide certain fields from the user. So those kind of things are called configuration. Essentially, the entire implementation is a vanilla implementation. What does a vanilla implementation mean? It's like the vanilla ice cream. Now, whether we have a chocolate or a mango or a tutti frutti or whatever kind of ice cream flavor we have, they actually make it in vanilla, and they first make it in vanilla and then they add flavors to it, right? So same thing here. Vanilla implementation means without any kind of enhancements, without any customization, without any changes to the core product that has been provided by the vendor. Vendor in this case is Oracle. Okay. Compare that with customization. Customization means making changes to the code given by the ERP vendor. Okay. Now this is a risky approach as future updates can wipe out customized change. Any changes that you make can get wiped out when the future updates are provided by the vendor. Okay, because when patches, these are called patches, fixes are provided by the vendor, it assumes that the original product is still the same. The original screen is still the same. Suppose you have customized one screen. Okay, you have added 2 new fields through custom changes. Okay, and you are using that, but a code change comes in. Okay, or customer or the vendor gives a patch which is to fix a problem, fix a bug with the product. Then that change that you have done on the screen will get wiped out, because vendor will assume that the original screen is still there, and whatever changes they do it on top of the original screen which was provided last by them. Okay, so customization is also a very costly affair. We might think it's nice, we do our own changes and all that, but it's a very, very costly affair. Now, when it comes to the cloud, it's not possible to do any kind of customization that may affect other customers, because the screens are the same for all the customers. Okay. So in the cloud offering, it is not possible to do any screen related customization. You can create reports, you can build your own reports, you can deploy your own reports, that is possible. Or you can make additional web services, or you can deploy any integrations with other products. That is possible, so long as you are using the approach or the programs that are provided by Oracle.
So I have one question.
Yeah.
So any kind of personalization, customization, which we see right now, let's say hiding a field or self-service, or adding any values or anything like that. So that is not part of customization?
No, that is configuration.
Configuration. Can you give me an example of actual customization? Is it like the screen display, the standard screen display which we have, the task and all? Is it that there are different tasks? How?
No, a very, very simple one would be, let's say the screen layout. You have seen the screen layouts of Fusion.
Yes.
Now, suppose I have bought a product. I don't like the layout of the screen.
Okay.
I change the layout of the screen.
Okay.
Okay. When I sign into Fusion, or when I go to the employee page, let's say the name is displayed as last name, first name, middle name, and so on. I don't like that.
Okay.
Okay. Let's suppose without configuration, I want to do customization. I don't want it one below another. I want it one next to each other.
Okay.
So I do a customization on that page.
Okay.
Right. Now, even if I were to do Onprem implementation, sorry, if I were to do an on-prem implementation where I am the only one using the product, next time Oracle sends a patch for that person form, it is going to assume that the original form is still there. Okay. Now, if I do any configuration, Oracle's patches don't affect my configuration. So whether it's a DFF or the moving around of the fields or, changing the order of the fields, hiding, enabling, disabling fields, all those are supported by the patches. Because if they get wiped out, again, I have to redo those same things again.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now, let's get into the methodology. Typically, when we do implementation, there are particular steps that we need to follow. Okay. Those steps are called as methodology. Originally, Oracle had come up with something called as the application implementation methodology, which is used when you have a fresh implementation. That means fresh meaning the implementation, ERP implementation is being done for the first time in the organization. Then you have new end-to-end implementations or module add-ons in existing implementations or upgradations to new versions. Depending on the kind of implementation that is being done, there are variations to the methodology. Oracle has also upgraded its methodology from application implementation methodology to different versions, you can say. But essentially, when we do a fresh implementation of ERP product, we tend to use the methodology as it was described in the AIM, application implementation methodology. So what does it talk about? It talks about things like project management, where we have the schedules or we have the deliverables or we have the quality management and things like that. Then we have something called as requirement analysis. So when we are doing an ERP implementation for the very first time, we will do a requirement of the customer's needs, right? Then you have solution function design. I'll describe each of them in a few minutes. Just bear with me. I'll first read out the different steps. Solution function design, that is, we are configuring the system in a test environment. Gap fitment analysis, that means there is a gap between what the customer wants and what the application offers. Okay, and we provide a solution. Okay, now since this feature is not provided, how do you want it? Do you want a report, or do you want a custom screen, or do you want an alert, or do you want an email going out, or what do you need to fit that gap? Then any customization developments that you might have, like integration needs. If the payroll is outsourced, you might need to send all the HR data to the payroll vendor. Or if the the user is having other applications, company uses other applications like benefit applications. There could be multiple benefit applications. So there could be a need to send the data out from ERP to the benefit vendor. Then you have CRPs. CRPs are the conference room pilots, which are like demos that we give to the user when we are doing the implementation. We'll tell them, look, this is how your HR process will be, this is how your payroll process will be, and these are the data that you will capture for an employee. They might agree or they might disagree, they might bring in more inputs. So if they give us more inputs or feedback, then we try to accommodate those. And then we might have to go for a second CRP as well. Then we have user training. User training is very important because users have to understand how to use the application, how to, based on their role in the organization. Some users may be super users, so they might need to understand the setup. Others might need to know just the end user, so they might just need to understand how to use the application. And then we have the production instance setup and deployment. So where the actual application production environment is being used. So for getting the production environment ready, we have the readiness assessment, then the cutover activities, data migration, and the go live. And after that, we have the post implementation support and maintenance. Now, if we were to look at this entire set of activities on a chart, it would look something like this. Okay. Typically nowadays, if it's a straightforward application for a geography, on an average around 6 to 7 months, or even 5 to 6 months, depending on how ready the organization is. So that is how long it takes to implement a solution nowadays. And so KO that you see here, this is the kickoff. So first, very early in the project, you have the introduction where all the teams, they come together, all the team members, they exchange hi, hello, they talk to each other. Then you have the analysis. Okay. When you do the analysis, this is where you are doing the, understanding the client processes and trying to configure the system as per the client processes. So I, being an outsider, if I were the implementation consultant, I would go to your organization doing the implementation, but I would first need to understand how you do the different processes, right? So how do you do the recruitment process? How do you do the benefits process? How do you do the payroll process? That I don't know. That I first need to understand. So that's the analysis. Okay. And then we have the, based on our understanding, based on our analysis, we have the solution build. So when we say solution build, that is where we are configuring the system in that test environment. So we get a test environment, and from the test environment, we start configuring. So when we say configuring, we add new fields, maybe if required. These fields are also called as descriptive flex fields. Okay. And then we also go in and look at how these additional fields will be, what are the names, what list of values are required. Okay. And if any workflow, how will the workflow work? There are standard workflows which are provided by Oracle. So they might fulfill the need. There might be need to tinker around with them, add more levels of approval to them and things like that. So based on the need, we might need to play around with that. And also there could be custom requirements, custom meaning the reporting requirement, integration requirement, sending the data to external vendors, right? Now, even if you look at the recruitment module, when someone is being recruited, you need to do a background check. A lot of companies send the data out to the background checking vendor. So they create a file and they say, look, these 10 people are joining this week, next weekend. Please do a background check on them. So there are separate tools or applications which for background checking, or it might be a simple file extract that is being created and sent out to the vendor. And data cleansing and migration is a very, very important and time-taking activity during any implementation. Okay, so data migration means the existing data has to be migrated into the new application. So the customer is, let's say, already using an existing ERP solution, could be a PeopleSoft, could be an Oracle Apps, could be a Siebel, or could be any other ERP product in the market. So that data is already stored in some form with the data in electronic form, could be in the database. So from that database, the data has to be extracted and then migrated into Fusion without users having to enter it manually. Okay. And there are also change procedures or training that is required for the users to help them understand the application and to work successfully in the product. You also do a lot of testing. Okay, so the testing could be individual, we call it as unit testing. It could be system integration testing, and then you have the user acceptance testing, which is the final testing before going live, UAT. Okay, when only after you do the UAT and the user signs off saying that yes, this is what I need, will the application go live. Okay, any questions on this?
No.
Shivani, any question?
No.
Okay. So we also prepare certain documents which are part of the application methodology. Now, a caution on these documents, lot of these documents are, customer might say that, oh, I don't need so much of documentation, because that also requires effort, and it can be time consuming and costly things. So they might cut down on the number of documents and have some bare documents that is created. Sometimes this requirement document, as is document, to be document, gap analysis, all this is merged together in one single document. There could be 3 or 4 columns, and then you just register them, and you have describe each requirement and have the corresponding mapping done. Then you have the user acceptance testing. These are also test scripts that are done. Test scripts are nothing but step-by-step explanation of what the user needs to do. Step 1, sign into the application. Step 2, enter the navigate to the employee form. Step 3, do this, do that, and all that stuff. So step-by-step description is given in the user acceptance testing.
Sorry, one question.
Yeah.
So the configuration document, right? And most of the time, I've seen that we are entering it manually. Okay. Is there any way that it can be automated, like in the sense that it automatically takes the configuration in the instance?
There are options to do an export import. Okay, I'll show that to you when we look at the application. So you can do an export import from between the environments.
No, I'm not talking about the export import. Basically, in the configuration document, right? We need to put up all the configuration in the system, right? So now, usually, what we do is that we enter it manually. Okay, in the Excel sheet. Okay, saying that okay, these UIs have this configuration. So just wanted to ask, is this an out-of-box solution of doing so that it's a pain to add the update the configuration workbook? Okay, so that's what. Is there any way if something that has come new, or
see, one is that import export option is there. Once you do an export, you have the configuration items there. Yeah, okay. But the problem with that one is a bit technical in nature. Okay.
Yeah, it is that format.
Yes. So then you will have to add on more things on top of it. That is one option. Another option is if there are frequent changes to the configuration, one can look at creating a report for that matter. right? Most of these fields are captured in the database. So whatever configuration you're doing, for example, you're defining an element or you're defining a eligibility rule. So, or you're defining a plan, all those are stored in the tables somewhere or the other, right? So for that matter, if you create a report one time, okay, let's say configuration definition report or element setup report, and you run that, you give a name of the element or you say all elements, so it will fetch you everything from the database along. So you have the row title, okay, and then you have the values.
Okay.
So that is another option that can be looked at, but of course there is an effort in creating the report.
Okay.
So when we come to the different types of work that we do in the Fusion or in the ERP landscape, if I may say, so these are all different work that is done in the around the ERP product. So consulting work can be ERP assessment, health checks, product selection. There are assignments for companies, all the consulting companies, Deloitte, PwC, EY, KPMG. So they help customers do the product selection. They come up with a list of for the RFQs, the requirements that have to be submitted during the tendering process and so on. So you have the consulting, you have the customization, then you have the support, okay, then you have the implementation, upgrade, and there could be some special offerings also, like a lot of these companies, they have a center of excellence where you have the core team sitting and helping others.
So Saurabh, this all we will be practicing in this app, right?
Yes, of course, in the application. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Shivani, you had missed out on the initial pieces. What we just talked about was, the application and all that. Okay. Let me just run through this and then I will also, do a quick recap for you. Shivani?
Yeah, sure. Hello?
Yeah. Okay. And just give me a minute.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just do a quick sign into the application and walk you around the application. So this is the user ID, the sign in page where you need to provide the user ID and the password. And here, when a user signs in, you have an option for choosing the language. So these are all the different languages that are supported in Fusion. Chinese, Turkish, Thai, Swedish, Slovak, Russian, Romanian, and all the different international languages. And you can also do a forgot password from here. This is the home page, or this is more like the first the analytics comes in based on the configuration of the home page. This is the original homepage that is provided by Oracle. And this portion is called as the springboard. Okay. And from here, you can quickly go to other parts of the application by scrolling to the right or to the left, depending on which part of the application you need to go to. And this is not the full set of features that you have access to. The complete set is available from here. The 3 lines, the burger icon. And from here, you can get this. This is the complete set of features to which a user has access. Now, sometimes what happens, if you look here, why I say this, you have 2 tiles here. If I go to the procurement and click on this plus sign here, I can go and see how many are there, and I can enable additional ones as per my need. So I'll go to the procurement. Oh, there are 2 of them only. So let's say I don't need this receipt regularly. I can just untick this and save and close. And then the receipt has disappeared. If I want to bring it back, I need to click on the plus sign again. And again, go to the procurement. And click on it. Again, save and close, and it will come back. Okay, so this is more like the frequently visited options that I have. So I don't have to always click on the navigator here. This is called as the navigator. This is called as the springboard. And if you scroll down below, you will see other things like things to finish, anything that is assigned to me, pending approval notifications and things like that. So you will see the open notifications that are pending action, news and announcements, any company related announcements. This is the analytics piece. So you could have small different kinds of graphs, charts displayed here based on the module to which you have access. You see here, a nice looking graph comes in, so you can see order line scheduling. So how many on time, how many late by how many days and stuff like that. And when you see this 107%, 0.107%, you have this as a drill down. So when I say drill down, if you click on this, it takes you inside that particular module, and it takes you directly to the order line and displays the order line details to you. So I've just clicked on it. So now it is trying to open up that order line details. Okay. And it shows you all the order lines that are outstanding.
So this graph is after we giving all the data, right?
Yes, yes. More data you have, more meaningful it becomes. Whatever data you have, based on that, system is going to display the graphic. On the side here, you have a repository here, the infolet repository. And if there are multiple options here, you can see them. And then you can tick and enable them, or you can disable them if you don't want it to show. And there is a small arrow here, which is called as the back view. When you click on it, it gives you another view of the order line scheduling performance. Here it is like customer wise, it is giving you the summary, how much of the total orders. So when you click on this, it will show you the total orders for Driscoll High School. Or click on this, or click on this, it will take you in. Okay. Now, if I were to go here on the right hand side, you will find multiple icons here. First one is a search icon.